TIFU by transplanting a liver and forgetting how to spell the word of. I am a surgical resident on my transplant rotation. The last couple of days have been brutal. I was essentially awake for 48 hours straight by first transplanting a kidney in one patient, then flying on the transplant jet to procure, harvest, a liver from a different state, then flying back and transplanting it in our very sick recipient. This was the patient's second liver transplant, so everything was completely scarred in. It was like someone had poured superglue in the patient's abdomen. We had to essentially carve the old liver out and had audible bleeding multiple times. Bleeding that sounds like an open garden hose is generally not compatible with life, but we got the patient through the operation with a pulse. From opening the belly to finishing took about 12 hours, and there were several times that we thought we were going to have to start CPR as the patient's blood pressure was dangerously low due to blood loss. We transfused 40 units of blood, which is around 14 liters of volume. Considering the average person has a total circulating volume of about 5 liters, 40 units is like replacing their entire blood supply 3 times. I, and most of my colleagues, don't really get tired operating. In part, it's hard to sleep when you're standing, but you're also so focused on the task at hand that you just forget to be tired. I'll be honest that as a medical student, I definitely fell asleep on my feet at the operating room table, but when you're active, it's tough to pass out. However, most of us crash immediately when we sit down. After closing the abdomen and wheeling the patient up to the intensive care unit, I sat down at a computer to quietly write my operative report, and the dense fog of fatigue set in. My eyelids were heavy and blinks lasted seconds. My hands felt weighted and my typing was so slow. I was having significant word-finding difficulty too, but was making steady progress. Then I got to the word of. Of. I said the word out loud slowly. Of. Definitely a V in there. I think. Fuck, that looks wrong. How do I spell off? I sat for minutes trying different iterations. Colleagues walked by to see how the case went. Wow, you look beat. Yeah, it's been a rough call. I considered asking my co-resident, but knew that if I did, the word of would definitely find its way to my graduation roast. Fuck. Finally, I thought to read another note and finally found it. Of. Are you kidding me? That is not how it's pronounced at all. Where's the V? In short, fuck you off. You are spelled wrong and you prey on the tired. TL, doctor, I transplanted a liver and forgot how to spell. Edit. As this post has gotten some exposure, I want to encourage all who read this to consider registering as an organ donor. There is a critical shortage of available organs and patients die on the wait list every day. All of our lives will end, but only a few get to save a life at the end of theirs. Organ donor registration. Bone marrow donation. Of all the ways to FU in your line of work, misspelling a 2-letter word is probably the least critical. Thank you. Luckily, I'm confident that we didn't put the liver in backwards. I'll admit that I practice my suturing more than I practice my spelling. You can use text to talk on your phone and get the word from there. Hope you get some good rest op. Or some advice. I'm going to have Siri dictate my next op note. This is what the people operating on us are going through. Bone chilling. Well, first of all, congratulations on getting that patient out alive. You saved that life. Secondly, I have to wonder what kind of system expects people to not only function but to do highly detailed critical work after 48 hours without sleep. It seems inhumane. My daughter wanted to do surgery, but as a female she realized that doing that and being married and having a kid was such a Herculean task that even the most dedicated female can't do it without huge risk of losing touch with family. It's a crazy system. I'm glad you do it, I just can't believe it's what's expected. Married to said resident, with a 1-year-old. It is incredibly soul-crushing, and a broken system based in nearly free resident labor. Audible bleeding. I'm no surgeon, but yeah, I don't really want to have that happen to me. TIFU by not believing my son heard bees. Some of you really liked my FU about the strip club with the kids, so thought I'd share another. Could probably have a whole dad series, though not sure I should brag about that. In our last house, we moved a couple years back now, one of my sons told me he would hear bees at night. Both my kids were at the time basically terrified of bees. Neither had ever been stung, so I never quite understood the fear they had. Regardless though, I fully believed he was just having nightmares. So naturally I told him over and over he was dreaming and he needed to stop worrying about bees. Over the course of the next week or so, my wife and I did start to see/find bees around the house. It wasn't like an obnoxious amount, but even like one every other day starts to feel like a bit much. That said, it was an older house with some crappy screens that needed patching, so we just kind of wrote it off as them finding a way in through those holes when we had the windows open. We had a few flowering bushes, so that seemed fairly plausible, as there'd often be a lot of bees around that time of the season. So an extremely relevant part of the story should be mentioned now. I have been a long time sufferer of insomnia. I don't like to take prescription meds regardless, nor would my doctor advise taking them long term, but I would hit periods of time where they were required just to keep me functioning. This happened to be one of those times. So now, one night, me and the wife are in bed. Likely it was some combo of reading and playing on phones, but it was late and mostly quiet, and we both swore we heard something. It sounded like something was running, like a small appliance or something, so I went downstairs. I wasn't even halfway down the stairs though and knew nothing was going downstairs. I went back up, and the sound was definitely still happening. I stood by the boys' rooms and didn't hear anything. At some point we became aware it was not down or on the same level as us, but it was up. We had a 2-story home, with an attic above, accessible only by a small hatch door in my wife's closet. So she clears some space and pushes on the door, at which time probably around 10 to 20 yellow jackets come swarming down. Beyond them in the dark, some unknown amount of bees are buzzing away, which is what we heard. But it's crazy late now, I'm highly medicated on sleeping pills, and we don't want to scare the kids getting them out of the house in a panic. We took care of the bees we saw come out, and planned on calling a local place immediately in the morning to come out. Scary thought, but seemed like the only option. Over the course of the night now, I kept waking up with shooting pains. I would wake up in complete agony, sit up for a second, and then fall right back asleep due to the medication. I remembered it happening several times. When we woke up in the morning I was telling my wife about it, and she told me I was dreaming, and having nightmares because I was scared of what we found that night. Of course, then I go to get up, throw the sheets off, and I'm surrounded by dead yellow jackets. They totally were still getting out of the attic door, or we missed some, then they were literally getting under the covers and stinging me. Had somewhere between 6 to 10 bee stings over arms, legs, and back. Followed through on calling a company in town, who came out and found hundreds to thousands of yellow jackets in the attic. Never told the kids. Moved since as well but swear that was unrelated. TL, doctor, son said he heard bees at night but told him it was a dream. Found we had hundreds plus bees in attic which came out and stung me all night while I was on sleeps meds. Edit number 1, just a quick note. I've been hitting some comments below, but to be clear these were yellow jackets and not bees. Apologies for using terms interchangeably, as I legit did not know they weren't a variation of bees. In regards to them being dead, since yellow jackets don't die after a sting, I have to believe my restless sleep ended them. If I was jerking awake when stung, I'm positive I was rolling around and likely swatting them in my sleep. My smushing seems very plausible to me given the situation, i.e. they were stuck under the covers. Someone below made a great explanation, that the scent of the wasps we got during the night probably lingered on me, drawing them into bed to attack. Hope that hits May of the questions for you all. This was a wild ride. When I was a kid we had a yellow jacket infestation in our basement, had to have been hundreds of the little fuckers everywhere. Yeah, and they are just nasty things too man. Sweet justice that you got stung and not the boys. I fully agree. But it's crazy late now. Oh sweet Jesus WTF. You know how people get silly over spiders? They see just one and they freak out and want to move, and it's stupid BC, it's just a spider. Yeah, that's not the same as fucking yellow jackets. There is no way on this green earth I'd stay in that room once I'd actually disturb those fuckers BC. They are ruthless about attacking, and also they send out distress signals when they're attacked, which means the other ones in the attic were probably ready to fight you. I can't believe you stayed. Skeptical. Yellow jackets are evil. If they find a nice spot like an insulated attic, or live in the south where it's hot all the time, their nest can keep growing year after year. A few years ago an older woman went outside to walk her dog and got swarmed by hundreds of them. She had a huge nest growing in one of her flower pots. Paramedics were eventually able to get to her, but she died in the hospital. Wow. Terrible story. Making me realize I FU'd even worse by risking the night. Wait, were they bees or yellow jackets? You keep switching back and forth. Ikra. Sometimes yellow jackets attack beehives, so during the part where they opened the trapdoor to the attic I thought they were witnessing a fierce insect war. Edit, bees are mostly friendly, while wasps are total bastards. Them being yellow jackets makes the story so much more scary. TIFU by getting into 2 car accidents in one day. Long story short, I got into an accident while making a left-hand turn out of a parking lot. There were 2 lanes of traffic and the car in the lane closest to me stopped and waved me to go. I was too trusting and didn't notice there was a Nissan Altima coming up next to them. I crashed right into the Nissan Altima. I took out the entire front of that Nissan with my Jeep. The lady in the car I hit was super nice and we exchanged phone numbers in case she needed any more of my info. My Jeep was fine, so I decided to stop for a bagel and some coffee and head to work. As I am eating my bagel, trying to forget what just happened, traffic came to a halt. You guessed it, I rear-ended the person in front of me. My Jeep was finally too damaged to drive. Everyone involved was fine though. A few minutes later I received a text from the first lady I got into an accident with that read, "Did you get into another accident?" I promptly asked, "How did you know?" She replied, "You hit my best friend." TL, doctor, I got into 2 car accidents the same day at separate times. Turns out the ladies I got into each accident with were best friends. Edit, this was 4 years ago. No accidents since. I haven't eaten in 12 hours that day because I was getting blood work done and coming out of the LabCorp parking lot. I was stopping at a Wawa, across the street, for some food before work. Always have and will continue to eat while driving. I didn't realize I was rattled after the first accident, hence the continuation to work. The distraction was being rattled, even if I didn't realize I was. The police and the state I live in didn't take my license, so I guess that's not for you all to decide. My insurance actually didn't go up by much at all. Yes, I told my insurance everything, even eating while driving. I'm pretty sure that's even on the police report. I just bought a brand new car and my insurance is still way under $200. Oh, no, my new car is not a Jeep, but still an SUV. I never responded to the first lady when she said I hit her friend. I assume her and her friend talked about getting into accidents that day, and when comparing stories, realized it was with me. Accidents are called accidents because you do something on accident. Some of you act as though I purposely went out looking for people to drive into on my way to work. I didn't think I would even have to explain all the details. I wanted to tell you guys a funny story of what happened to me one day, but some of you are mean, so here's the edit with extra details. Thank you to all the people who realized this was just a bad day and wishing me well. Did you try turning today off and back on again? Another accident. She's disappointed in you. Jesus, what are the chances? Rough day, friend, rough day. Coming from a claims adjusters, you'd be shocked how common this is. Accidents come in pairs. It's like the first one makes you a bullseye for the next. Edit. I finished reading the post lol. Hitting 2 people that know each other is a huge coincidence. First, sorry to hear of your misfortune, and I'm glad you're okay. Second, with regards to the first accident, and person in one lane, who stopped to let you in. Leo here. Please / don't do what that driver did. If you're driving down the road, do not stop to let someone out of a driveway. It's dangerous, as we see what happened to Op, and depending on your location, possibly unlawful as well. I get that you may want to be polite, but when driving, predictable is better than polite. You set up a situation which can lead to a blind spot or collision, as happened to Op. And it's likely not even polite, since you're inconveniencing potentially more people behind you. So, again, when you're driving, be predictable, not polite / rights of way exist for a reason, and if you have the right of way, not taking it leads to confusion and wrecks. Edit, thanks very much for the gold, anonymous Redditor. As I am eating my bagel, trying to forget what just happened, traffic came to a halt. You guessed it, I rear-ended the person in front of me. You were eating while driving after you just got into an accident. Did you tell the insurance company that? I had to. Mostly because the contracted auto body company had to clean off cream cheese on my windshield and coffee from all over my car.